Thomas Cole, and as you know, some people are worried about the wars in Ukraine, and I wanted to say that I am a peace candidate. I believe these wars are proxy wars. The U.S. is playing around with a nuclear-armed foe, and the whole reason that we're there is because we want to try out our weapons systems. For instance, BlackRock has a controlling interest in most of those defense companies. They're over in Ukraine testing out their weapons systems and sending in arms. And in the meantime, BlackRock also has the controlling interest in the rebuild contracts, which is like $500 billion plus dollars. So it's one of those situations where one company is creating a war and then profiting from that, and then also profiting from the rebuild efforts. And they've got Viktoria Nuland from State Department promoting war, along with the CIA, working there to flip elections in Ukraine to put in anti-Russian governments. And there's Ukraine actions against Russian speakers in Ukraine. Massacres have occurred. Hundreds of people have been killed years ago, and just in the 2018s and 15s. And so this war is a complete disaster. Probably got 1 million people going to be dead in a few more months. And out of the whole population of Ukraine, that's be like our nation having 30 million dead. I think we would notice that and wonder, why are 30 million people dead over a border dispute? Another item I like to mention along with this war is when we consider what the Ukraine war is about. It's a border problem. And imagine what happened in *63 when Russia decided to put in nuclear missiles into Cuba and point them at the United States. Now, our president, JFK, was a peace president, but he said, well, that's our sphere of influence. That's like 100 miles away from Florida. And so that was not allowed. The U.S. put in a naval blockade and just told the Russians, no, you're not putting nuclear-armed missiles into Cuba. We don't care if Cuba is upset about not being completely independent from the U.S. You're in our backyard. And imagine, for instance, again, what if Russia today started sending in missile batteries and nuclear-capable missile batteries and putting them on Mexican soil, pointed directly at the U.S. Well, that's what NATO's been doing in Ukraine. The treaties that were made with Russia and Ukraine, the Minsk treaties and other treaties, demanded and required that Ukraine remain neutral, not part of NATO and not all armed up. And yet, we have NATO and the U.S. in conjunction with the CIA and BlackRock arming up Ukraine and sending offensive missiles that can be armed up nuclear right up to the border of Russia in Ukraine. And so that is what this war is about. It's not about Ukraine being attacked by Russia. It's about the West putting nuclear missiles pointed at Russia right up on the border, which was never supposed to happen. So that's why I'm a peace Republican, and I wouldn't fund any of these proxy wars, and certainly not the Ukraine war. They can't afford it. They should not have armed up themselves against Russia and expected us to come in and bail them out. Now we've killed like 15% of the nation. An entire generation of young people are dead in Ukraine, and yet we think nothing of it. So I would definitely vote to cut off any funding and instead send in the diplomats. And I don't mean Viktoria Nuland. I mean real diplomats that actually want to have peace. So that's my little note for the day. Thanks for listening. This is Thomas Cole signing off.